Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL for 5% off your order. We're also sponsored by Quiver Time, makers of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine card holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their site for 10% off your purchase. And by Architect, a deck hosting website that doesn't sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them for all your deck list needs. Now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., Architect, and Quiver. Now today I have a very unique guest, one that I never would have imagined doing, but magic takes you to weird places. And one of my other passions is, of course, politics and progressive politics, which I've mentioned here many times before. And it turns out that in America right now, where we're having a very large problem with right-wing nationalism, and especially in the Midwest and other places, one of our progressive politicians who's going to be running for office is also a Magic player, which is something I would not have said maybe 10 years ago, but I'm 42, and if that's the case, then certainly other people my age who are doing these sorts of things probably also are old and play Magic and video games. But joining me today is Senatorial Candidate from Missouri, Lucas Kunce. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Man, I am stoked because, like, it's not often I get to talk about basically my two favorite things, which is politics and magic. And people get very touchy about them because, magic is a global game, and folks are like, "Oh, you Americans just like to talk about your American things all the time." I'm like, "Well, we have a problem in America, and we need to fix it." Um, so, first off, though, can you tell me about that sheet that's hanging behind your head?
Oh, yeah. So the one I've got up here is a revised uncommon uncut sheet. So
Holy crap!
it's pretty exciting. I really love this one too because it's got Wanderlust on it, which is my favorite card. So
Man, the man after my own heart. I used to play that a lot in 1993 or four. Um, how did you get a revised uncut sheet?
well, I actually traded for it. So when I was a kid, I was really I would save up my snow shoveling, my lawn mowing money. I would bike about a mile and a half to the card shop, and I would buy packs of cards, and that was just Magic
When did you
cards. And
start?
I started in '94, so I played a little bit in '90. I don't know if it was late '93, early '94. It was alpha beta with my friend's older brother.
Oh,
He had them all rubber banded together. They
oh,
were all trashed. We just played them like you play regular cards, right? And who knows whatever happened to those? And
yeah.
then yeah, and then like so many. And then the next year, I got into it myself and started collecting. So I think it was right when Fallen Empires came out. So it was like revised Fallen Empires
Mm.
time is when I really like started buying for myself.
It feels like a lot of us share that same story. Like we all started playing kind of around like the dark revised-ish era, and then we're like, yeah, we're gonna start buying our own cards. And of course, the worst set of all time is the one that we all jumped in with. Um, but yeah, that's sweet. And so I didn't even know you
Actually,
went
I'm
like,
gonna say Fallen Empires has got some pretty strong cards in it. It's just it was overprinted to the point that it's
yeah,
not worth anything.
yeah.
Like the Hymn to Turok had been in alpha, that baby'd worth some serious money.
You know what? You have just right there showed me your bona fides that you know what you're talking about, and I'm now very impressed with this conversation. Because there's a lot of times when I've talked to like Magic players from the old days who are just kind of very vague about what it is, but you're like, "Yeah, man, Fallen Empires was overprinted." I'm like, "Okay, he knows what he's talking about. Let's go." Yeah, like him to Turok and like the Order of Ebon Hand, Order of Leapbird, those were like
Oh
rad
yeah,
cards
those big money cards, man.
and Thalids and everything. But Homelands is the one that nobody can actually save. That card, that's it sucked. Um,
Homeland's pretty rough. Unless you're rolling the Merchant Scroll, that's the only one out of there that's really
Look at
playable.
you. Yeah, Merchant Scroll and Serrated Arrows, I think, were my two favorite cards in that set. Um,
I liked
but
Autumn Willow personally, but that was just like for fun. It's kind of the first hex-proof creature that I remember
yeah,
anyway.
look at well, the Autumn Willow and Deadly Insect, the 5/1 that I think had like Shroud or something.
Yeah,
Um,
but that was alliances.
damn, you are
I'm pretty
wrecking me.
sure it was alliance. I guess someone should fact check me on
No, I
that.
think I think that
It
was
might have
oh,
been Homelands too. Yeah.
They kind of blend together in my head. I bought a lot of both of
They
those
do
sets.
kind of bend together in my head too. So yeah, that very well could have been home
Yeah, well,
runs.
we
Yeah,
were
you're
talking
probably
30
right.
years ago. It's fine. Um, ah, that's rad. But you traded for a uncut sheet? Because
Oh
I've
yeah.
never
So
even seen an
well,
uncut
actually,
sheet
this
of
goes back.
revised.
So around the time I started playing Magic, one of the kids at my school, his dad. So this is going to get into baseball a little bit, but
Mm,
so my parents had no money, right? Like we grew up broke, and
mm,
it was like the best I could do was go get myself a couple packs whenever. I think my dad bought me like a Ice Age starter pack at one point.
mm,
But I remember this kid down the street. Um, his dad, well, down the street, like a ways down the street. He went to the same school as me. He and his dad would open up these Tops boxes of baseball cards, and they were like chasing
mhm.
Tops Black Gold. And so this was, I think that was '93. It was right around in there. And I just remember thinking, "Whoa, it is so crazy that people like can actually buy an entire box of cards and just
Right?
like open it in this chase." So when I finally got my first job, well, my first, I mean, I worked at Subway.
Sure.
I was a sandwich artist. I worked when I got my first real job. It was when I was out of school. I joined the Marine Corps, and so I was in the Marine Corps. I had a steady paycheck. I got on Craigslist, and I was like, I'm gonna buy some boxes of Magic cards from back in the day, just because I was never able to do it. So
Yes.
I got a revised booster box
Whoa.
for almost nothing. I mean, this was I don't know, 2007, 2008. So
Jeez.
I got a revised booster box, and I got a brick of foreign blackboarded revise
Oh,
starter decks, and I was gonna open them, and then I didn't have anybody to open them with.
no.
So because I wanted to do like sealed. So sealed back then was you would take a starter brick, and then you'd take like 3 packs of
Mhm.
deck. I wanted to do that with some people, and this didn't cost that much at the time. But my friends and I, like the friends I played Magic with in college, like they wanted to just like draft Mirrodin again or whatever, and
Sure.
so I never got around to it. And then I went to when I was stationed at the Pentagon, I went to a Magic shop in that area that had an uncut sheet, like an old collector's edition rare sheet. So it was, it had all the Moxes, Lotuses, everything else on. I was like, whoa, that is so cool.
Whoa.
I want to get an uncut sheet. And so I found like a guy who had some in New York, and I was like, hey, could I just trade you something for this? And he's like, yeah, what do you got? And he was like, well, I like your foreign black bordered revised starter brick. And I was like, okay, man. So I traded him that for the set of uncut revised sheets.
Wait,
So I
you have
have the
more
whole
than
set. I
one?
have the rares, uncommons, and the commons.
What?
So
What?
yeah,
What?
I don't know if that was a good deal or not. Like I don't know
You know,
what either of them are worth. They're kind of like hard to track. I think what a price would be,
yeah, because
especially
they're
on.
so hard to get. You know how much well, I mean, look, a a brick of foreign black border starters is a lot of money. An uncut sheet of revise is also a lot of money. So I think you kind of balanced it pretty well there. 'Cause
I think so. I mean, it was a good. It was a good. Really, the good move here was buying those boxes but when they were almost nothing. I mean,
oh,
nobody
yeah.
was buying those back then.
I mean, really, it's which one makes you more happy? Like, looking at your poster on
Oh,
the
I like the
wall.
sheets. Yeah, I love having the sheets up. Well, so the better story though is I traded the well, actually I sold the revised uh, booster box
Mm.
to a store, and then used that money to. It was like a one for one transaction, but the guy didn't. He wanted cash, so I sold it to a store, and then bought a beta uncut common sheet with that.
Oh.
So that's a good one too. Yeah.
Damn, dude, that's wild. I don't think I mean, I've seen a lot of uncut sheets in my day, but I've never seen one from that old, except at, like, Wizard of the Coast, where obviously they've got beta uncut sheets because they're Wizard of the Coast. But, like, I'm just staring behind you and I see, like, a Soul Ring on that, and I'm like, "Oh my god, that is like" I didn't know
I
that I
think,
wanted
like I
anything.
said, this is my favorite one because revised was when I was really starting to buy. I
Mhm.
love that. So another good thing that I did is when I was in high school and I was working at Subway,
Mm.
I was obsessed with dual lands because I liked how they had the like
The
the
little
text
box,
box.
right?
It was like a swirl. I didn't have a reason to be obsessed with them, and so
Right.
you could get dual lands from our local card shop for between $4 and $5 at that time. So
Damn.
I just bought them all. I bought the whole set back then for like next to nothing, and so
Oh my
that's how I
god.
went. buy
The
sheets, but
dream.
well,
That's
no,
a
the worst thing though was I did have a perfectly mint condition or Alpha Ancestral recall that I had I sold it when my car died and I had to get a new car and I just didn't have any money, so I sold that for like $700 in '08 or something. Probably a mistake. I don't look at what it costs now.
we
I
try not
mean,
to
gym
think about
mint,
that.
like gym mint. And the crazy thing is, I've been tested it back then because they weren't like, I was like, is this thing real? I've been tested. It worked. It was fine.
You're hurting me, man. But,
Yeah,
like, we can't think about those things because time always moves on, prices always go up. You can't sit and because in the moment, you needed that money, you needed your card to be fixed, trade, it's fine. We
I was
accept it
desperate, man.
and move
I
on.
had no like, and it's like, do you want to sell the thing that like where you can just sell one, or do you want to sell like a whole bunch of stuff and keep the one? It's like, well, I want to keep the stuff to play with it, so I'm just going to sell. It was actually my two most expensive things. I sold that, and I sold I had a collector's edition box, and I sold that. So
Well, you know what, though? You also need to drive, right? Like,
well, I had to get around. I had to get to work. I had to get places, and it just I had to do it, and I was
yeah.
pretty thrilled at the time because it was basically like a free car
I
for what I
mean,
got the stuff
to be
for.
fair, it would be a free car today too, but that car would probably be a Tesla more than
Well, I got an old beater, but I don't know.
I mean, I know a
I'm
lot
not
of
the only
people.
person that has these stories where you got to cover rent, you got to
Oh, yeah,
cover
dude.
medical bills, and it's
I know
just
a lot of people who have traded cards for, like, to pay for their kids' college or to pay their mortgage
yeah,
payment or a down payment on a house. It's like, when you're old and we've had these cards for 1,000 years, sometimes you need we need money. We live in a country where you have to pay for things, right? So,
that's
if you
right.
can trade this stuff that you've had and you're not really using for anything and get something tangible out of it, sure. Like, I would sell my duels if I needed to get something for my kid, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
I mean, that's just kinda how we have to do. It's weird that people were, like, making fun of you for having all these rare cards. I'm like, if you collected and just kept they were cheap when we were kids, and they're expensive now. That's not your fault. That's just
I
the
know.
way it works.
Well, it's like I joke. Well, these guys were just buying 92 score baseball cards, and they're
Right?
upset because you can still get a pack of those in the antique mall for 50 cents.
Exactly. Like that Jose Canseco, 3rd baseman card is not gonna buy you a house these days, sorry.
Oh yeah, I actually remember I was talking about the Topps Black Gold.
Yeah.
I thought this might come up, so I googled it before I looked it up on eBay. The Topps Black Gold cards are still like 99 cents. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It turns
So
out nobody cares about who the 5th baseman on, like, the Pirates in 1993 was, right? Like, yeah, but it's wild that Magic has managed to survive this long. Like, when I think
it's a
about it,
great
I'm like,
game.
"I've been doing this since I was 12. This is a
Yeah.
long time to play anything, let alone to have a game just exist and persist like that." Um, but
I think it was transformational for a lot of people. I mean, like in middle school, I was one of those kids who, again, like my parents were we were paycheck to paycheck, right?
mm,
Like we went my parents got married at 19 and 22. They went bankrupt when my little sister had to have heart surgery. We only made it because people down at church passed the plate for us, and people in the neighborhood brought food by our house.
mm,
And I just think for a lot of us, middle school wasn't that easy for me, right? Like I had Salvation Army clothes or stuff from my cousins from like the early '80s,
yeah.
and Magic was something that could sort of be an escape. You could go to the card shop, and no one really judged you. I ride my bike down there, and it was a cool place to go. And so I think for a lot of us, it carries sort of that extra cachet of belonging and not having to worry about kind of the hard parts of life. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that helps it last, at least for our generation. Like for me, like I don't want to get rid of my cards. I like playing. I like playing with my old friends. I like teaching my kids. It's
Mhm.
just that it kind of becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
And if
There's
you
a
get into
lot
it newer, you spend so much time on it anyway, it becomes a part of you. So
I mean, that's the truth, right? Like, eventually, it's just like, we've been doing this for so long, what else are we gonna do? But I think what you said is absolutely correct. Like, one of the things I've heard consistently from people as I've talked to people both as, like, as a leader in the community and as doing this podcast, is that
hmm
Magic has given a lot of folks who would have not had opportunities, a lot of opportunities they didn't have, but it also gave us the chance to socialize or to build community or to build connections that we might not have otherwise had. 'Cause, like, there's a lot of players. I mean, Magic's an expensive game, but at the same time, when you start, it's easy to just start with like bulk and trash from a store and just kind of build up. It gives you a friends group that's built in. It gives you people who accept you, people who kind of are willing to take you in and don't care about where you come from or what your finances are, or
Yeah.
any of the other problems in life. And it allows you to just excel based on yourself and not on the surroundings that brought you here. And it's given a lot of people like a lot of confidence and a lot of just like ability to solve problems in the rest of their life using the things they learn here. I think it's a valuable tool once you get past the capitalistic aspects of everything being so expensive. It's still just it brings so many people together.
Yeah, I agree. It's been really great. It was great. When I was traveling, in the Marine Corps, you get stationed all over the place, right? I got
Mm,
stationed at my first station was in Virginia, and then I got sent to California, and then North Carolina. And you can go to the car. I went to the card shop in these places, or I met friends in the Marines who played. Shoot,
yeah.
when I was in, so I deployed to Iraq and then to Afghanistan twice. When I was in Afghanistan, we would draft Theros was one of the sets. The second time I was there, and I don't know who, but somebody sent us a couple of booster boxes, and we would draft them, and then we just shuffle them all together, draft them again, and
Heck yeah, man.
when you're not running missions, it's a nice thing to come back and do and kind of build camaraderie and everything like that. So
Yeah, like I used
great.
to know a lot of people in the army who used to carry like D&D books with them all the time and play D&D campaigns while
Yep,
they're out in the
I could
field.
have done that too.
And like Magic turns out a deck of cards is much easier to carry than like 12 books in your backpack when
It
you're
is
hiking
a
out in
small
Bagram
book.
or whatever it is. Um, and it's easy. It gives you the same kind of storytelling ability and the same kind of like random replayability, much lighter to carry in your rucksack. And it's wild because, like, for instance, Commander, the format was created by Sheldon Menery, who is a retired Air Force. He was like some high level Air Force ranking soldier.
Oh,
I don't
that's
remember what
cool.
his thing
Yeah,
was.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he used to go. He's like, yeah, man, we used to go all over the place in like the Air Force and the Navy and teach all these people to play Commander and just carry decks around because when you're on a submarine for like 8 months at a time,
Oof,
playing Magic is
brutal.
a good way to pass time, right? Um,
Yeah. When I was in the
yeah,
Marine Corps, I was like, anything but a boat. Send me to Iraq again. Send me to Afghanistan again. I think I'd lose it.
yeah. So, do you still play now?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I go to the local shop, the Game Cafe here in Independence. Occasionally, it's hard with the schedule that I
Well,
have.
yeah.
I go to Commander nights actually because all my cards are pretty much old, and
Hmm.
so I just
The only
I
place to
can
play
play
them is
with them,
Commander
and
now.
like sometimes I'll get an infinite combo that nobody sees coming because they're just ignoring the guy that's only got cards up to 95. But everybody's great, and there. And then for newer stuff, I actually play arena, so I just do like best of one standard on arena. But yeah, the commander is really great for all of us who um,
Just
don't have
kept
the
our
time or
cards.
budget to go all in on like the new set every single time, and you still got the old cards and can play them.
Exactly. Who is your commander?
Right now, I'm using Tetsuo,
Mm.
so good old legend. But I mix it up a little bit. I like Feldegriff. It gets there's it's fun to like drop a mode on the table when nobody's had a mode dropped on the table before. You know, things like that.
Man, you really are an old school player if you've got Tattoo and Feldegriff.
Yeah,
Feldegriff was a
and
very popular commander, to be fair.
I really I always try to make sure I have an infinite mana combo in there just so that like I can occasionally randomly win. So I always got the power artifact basalt monolith going on or something,
Yes,
kind of
yes,
sneaky
yes.
like that.
Man, I think we would have been friends 25 years ago when we were kids
Yeah.
doing all those
Yeah.
things. Um, but that's fascinating, man. It's amazing to me that like, I mean, I say this weirdly as a person who is old and still plays Magic, but I just love hearing stories of people who just keep these hobbies that they've done their whole lives and just persist with them as just like it's not like your life, but it's just a part of the thing you do. Because like, you see a lot of people who will be like, "Oh man, I can't believe you still play those cards that you did as a kid." I'm like, "Yeah, but you spend your Sundays watching golf, right?" Like we all have hobbies that we do. It just mine just involves sitting with other people and throwing down cards. Um, it's like our kids are gonna have the same thing with like, "Oh yeah, man, I just play Minecraft on the weekends. It's not a big deal." Like,
Yeah, that's right. That is what they'll be doing.
it's gonna be wild. Um, so transitioning though, like you came back from
Mhm.
the Marines and you went into like, did you go into law after that, or did you do law
No,
before you went to the
I
Marines?
went to law school before the Marines, then joined the Marines. So I was a lawyer in the Marine Corps, and I was also a foreign affairs officer. So I learned Pashto.
Oh,
Um,
damn.
yeah, that was quite a journey.
Like, I speak a lot of languages, but the Persiatic and Arabic ones are very difficult for me. Pashto is real it's a real tricky language to speak.
It's really weird. I mean, it's got a lot of weird reflexive stuff in it, and
Yeah.
now it's been 10 years. So as they say in Pashto, "Rana Hereshwa," it's
Yeah,
floated
exactly.
away,
You're a little
and
little rusty on the not a lot of Afghans to hang out with, huh? Um,
no.
but yeah, because I was gonna say, like, if you went from law school to the Marines, that means, like, that's not a standard path a lot of people take. Did you, like, go to become the officer, like, to join the officer corps or something like that?
Yeah, I joined as an officer, and yeah, I was '07. So, I mean, what it really comes down to is when I mentioned how kind of our neighborhood and people
Mhm.
helped us out, right? And
Yeah.
one of the guys who helped us out at one point. Even though we had no money, we always tried to join in where we could and help in the community. And so our church used to have these dinners where just anybody could come, and so it would be people on the edge, people who were unhoused, situations like
Yeah.
that. But anybody could come, and so I'd volunteer at our soup kitchen, is what we called it. Our whole family would. I mean, I was pretty young at the time, and the guy who actually ran the parish kitchen at the time, his name was Al. I know you're wondering, how does this have to do with the Marines, but we're going to get there, I promise. And
No, I'm
so,
listening.
when we all would come in to the place, Al would ask us, what do you want to do? What's your chore going to be? Everybody would help set the tables at the beginning, but after that, you could clear the tables. You could be waiting for the trash to take it
Mhm.
out. You could be greeting people. There's all sorts of things you could do. And so my sister and I, we were always like, oh, we want to do the dishes. We want to do the dishes. And Al was always like, what's wrong with
Okay.
these two kids? Like, that is the worst possible job. But what Al didn't understand at first was that the parish had dishwashing machines, right? And so we thought we were just scamming this old man, because we'd roll in there and he'd hand us some, we just throwing it into this machine. Like, Al's an idiot, man. Like, back home, doing the dishes is standing there for 45 minutes,
Oh, yeah.
grinding that out at the sink, rinsing, drying, all this other stuff. So we just thought Al was a fool.
Mm.
Now Al eventually figured that out, and that's the crazy part. 2 years later, approximately, I don't remember exactly because I was kind of young. Al showed up at our house. He had renovated his house, and he actually he remembered us, took his old dishwasher, put it in his blue pickup truck, brought it to our house, and had someone install it for us.
That's awesome.
Isn't that cool? And so the thing about Al is, Al was a Marine in Vietnam, and Al was kind of somebody I looked up to, and helped us out occasionally, and helped me later. And so when I was looking for a way to just pay everybody back for what they did for me, pay my country back, I got to go to college on a Pell Grant, which I
Mm.
think is a pretty sweet thing that we have that. Which was, by the way, created by Thomas Eagleton, senator from Missouri, Democratic senator from Missouri. But I was just looking for some way to pay everybody back, and I was like, I was talking to Al, and he took me down to the Marine Corps League, and I met all these old timers, and they sang their song about how bad things are, and how bad they got treated, and how they served anyway. And I was like, all right, these seem like some honorable guys, and I just decided, I'm going to join the Marine Corps and follow in their footsteps. And
Yeah,
so I
because
did that, and there you have it.
that is, I mean, because the Marines is not the easiest force to join. That's like a very hard and grueling task to bring upon yourself. It's like joining the Marines willingly is not something I've heard a lot of stories. Like a lot of people, like I I enlisted for financial reasons or for other reasons that they had to join, but it's like it's pretty neat that you were like inspired by somebody who actually helped you out to be like, okay, if this Marine Corps can give them this kind of discipline, then maybe I should be able to go and do the same. Then I can go and help other people out, which is really cool. Is that like was that where you decided you wanted to become a politician afterwards, or did you come back and be like, what happened in Missouri while I was gone?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a more the latter than the former, probably. But I mean, it was just, people asked me what it was like going over there, and it's like, well, I'll tell you what it was like. Because so what I did when I was in Iraq, I was on a police training team, and
Hmm.
so my job, I had 12 Marines and a Navy corpsman, and we would drive around, like basically, I would lead missions around central Iraq, drive down IED covered roads, try to plan them so we wouldn't get blown up. and try to help the Iraqi police get trained up to do policing on their own.
Mm.
And then in Afghanistan, oversaw the Afghan local police. I learned Pashto, so I did a lot of what most people would call nation building, right?
Right.
And I watched our country spend $6.4 trillion. Like, wrap your head around that number, $6.4 trillion. Like, first in a chase for oil that we never got, and second in a place we should have left 10 minutes after we got there and could
Right.
accomplish the mission. And just I saw that the amount of money we spent there, and then I came home to my old neighborhood in Jeff City, again working class neighborhood, and like the first house that I ever lived in there became an empty lot while I was in Afghanistan. The one I joined the
Jeez.
Marine Corps out of, like, doesn't have windows in it anymore. It's all overgrown. The corner store was shut down because it's been robbed so many times. They can't
Jeez.
get insurance for it. And just I watch these neighborhoods get no investment, completely fall apart, while we're willing to spend all this money overseas in wars that we didn't need to be in. And it's just like I found it entirely infuriating. And so I think the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, is when I was at the Pentagon. I was doing arms control negotiations with NATO and Russia for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. So that was my last duty station. I was at the Pentagon.
That's
Yeah, so
a
I'd
hell
go
of
over
a
to
spot, man.
NATO and I'd negotiate with our NATO allies, and then I'd go over to Vienna, Austria, and we'd do negotiations with Russia and some of the other countries. And it was crazy to me because this was after Russia had invaded Georgia in '08, after they'd invaded Crimea in 2014. And so, like, this is a pretty bad actor, right? Like, you
Right.
got someone who's done a couple bad things, and they're modernizing their military for more war, and they're building up troops. And so I'd go to our NATO allies. I'm like, guys, you got to take a hard position on these people. This is really bad. And they'd be like, well, I don't think we can do that because we're getting all this cheap natural gas
Mm-hmm.
from them. And it's just like, I actually wrote an article about this before the war started while I was still in the Marine Corps. I was like, this is crazy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
our country needs to invest in the next generation of energy so that we can have good jobs here and we can export that to places like Europe so that they're not buying the current generation of energy from Russia and fueling this war machine. And obviously we
Right.
saw what ended up happening with that. And so for me, it's just uh, our country, if we'd spent the money in Iraq and Afghanistan on the next generation of energy, we wouldn't have had this war in Ukraine. We'd be completely energy independent. We'd be saving the planet. We'd have good jobs. Like, there's so many good things, but we never make these right decisions. We don't invest it in the right ways. We just basically politicians do what their campaign funders ask them to do, and it's very bad for all of us. And
All
so
right. So
that's a
if I can
frustration.
ask,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean that's again one of the biggest frustrations I have as like an American, as a person who's involved in this culture, is that we're spending our money on weirdly corrupt ways to do things
Hmm.
that'll fund the benefactors of the people who are, deciding where the money goes, which is obviously incorrect, and like just messed up. So I have a weird policy question for you. That
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, what is your stand on Citizens United, on the nature of the fact that we can just buy votes basically without telling anybody where these things are coming from, where corporations have the same voices or better voices than I do, right? The ability to like direct I mean, you see what's happening in the Supreme Court with all this right now, them deciding that like the court is now a much better suited to run the country than the actual elected officials or the people who live here. Um, where do you think, like, how do we get out of this kind of hole that we're in?
Yeah, I mean, Citizens United is pure legalized corruption. That was the entire point of it, and I just it's crazy to think of these people who can actually say that, like, well, corporations are people, corporations have rights, everything else is like, no, corporations are creations of the state. They are legal fictions, like they are created by the people in order to serve our better interests. And when they stop doing that, like, then we should just kill them. Like, they're nothing. Like, we
Seriously.
created them. We have complete control over this. But there's just this fiction that the people who are corrupt has created. Like, who likes corruption in government, right? The people who are corrupt in government. But that's who's running things. And so, like, for me, I would say the core value of my campaign that everything else comes off of is that the only people I ever want to owe are the people in my neighborhood who passed the plate for me as a kid, the people who, everyday folks who know how to take care of each other. And so, I mean, I don't take any corporate PAC money. I take no federal lobbyist money, no big pharma, no big fossil fuel executive money. We have a
Mm,
really long list because I think that we need to start having people who run that way and win that way so that, they're beholden to no one but everyday people, and
Yeah.
so that's where I feel about all that stuff.
Because like it's as like a person of faith and a progressive, one of the things that I just run into over and over that just frustrates me to no end is watching all of these people just suffering with ways that we have money and we have the means to be able to fix, we have the means to be able to help people, and instead every chance we get, this country chooses the choice that will hurt the most amount of people rather than help the most amount of people. We see this with women's health care, we see this with LGBT rights, and especially now we've seen this with like what is happening to trans folks in America right now who are just getting like, and again, my listeners at home, this involves Magic too, because Magic is one of the largest collections of transgendered players that I've ever seen in a group, because we're a welcoming society and we don't judge people on based on who they are or where they came from. And it sucks to watch all of my friends and all of my community members who live in Florida or like now in Missouri or Montana or whatever, just watching their lives get flipped upside down for political gain from fascists, basically. And like that's why I'm banking on people to vote for folks like you to be able to help us reverse this tide to make it to that, because I feel personally that government should be doing the most it can to help as many people as it can. Like our job is to uplift other people, not to push them down to make us look higher, right? Like it's to bring everybody up to a level that we can all live safely and happily and maybe not drive as many cars around. But I'm curious, like you've seen what's happening. Like in Missouri, they've been shutting down public libraries. They've been doing things like voting on like anti-trans laws and things like that. How do you change this culture? How do you tell your state to stop doing this?
Well, first of all, I think like people are kind of getting tired of it. And so every group that you go against like increases the chances that a person who didn't care before has now been touched by it, right? So you go after women, you go after trans, you go after gay, you go after, an entire litany of people, then suddenly everybody's been touched and they've heard about who it's affected, and it's kind of been hard for them. So I think that at one point, which I think we're getting to the tipping point on this, you've just gone too far. And the thing is that, and I didn't want to get like highly partisan on this, but like just to since I'm in a campaign, this is what I see. I mean, what you see on the other side right now, I'm a Democrat. On the Republican side, is there's really two currencies that you can operate with in a Republican primary. It's either corporate money. You're either going to get all the corporate money and you're going to flood the air, you're going to flood the whatever you want to call it, the gaps with that, or it's culture war, right? Currency, and those are the only two things. Those are the two things that you can use on that side, and so and that's where you see people going down. I don't think the average American though, or even the average Missourian likes that, right? So in Missouri, for example, I mean, you want to talk about the corporate money and people wanting to have control over their own lives, like on ballot measures. People will be very surprised by this, right? We increased the minimum wage on a statewide ballot initiative $5 over the federal level. We overturned the anti-union right to work legislation 68 to 32. We expanded Medicaid over the legislature because people like were hurting because they didn't have access to medical care.
Right?
We did a whole bunch of things. We legalized marijuana, just complete recreational legalization, and so people here are trying to take power back for themselves. And what they see with the extremism now, even if they're not touched, or maybe they even agree with some of it, is they see the degree to which government is now trying to intrude into their lives, the way that they're trying to control people in literally every aspect of their life, and that's something that's not very popular here. And so that's sort
Yeah.
of where here on a state, we're kind of on the front lines in the fight for democracy. There's a breaking point that people are just getting past.
Yeah, like I don't well, I mean, I don't want to turn this into a campaign ad specifically for you because I'm not obviously in Missouri, but like your opponent is not my favorite person in the world. Let's just say he's not my favorite person. Like I saw that how Mr. Howley reacted during January 6th, raising fists for the Nazis, and I'm like, bro, this is America. We don't do that. Um, or in the America that I wish we had, we didn't do that. But this is the world we live in, right? So
Well, he's not a lot of people's. most favorite person here either. So he's the only statewide Republican that's been polling underwater. So his approval's 42, his disapproval's 43. Like that's an accomplishment here, and he's achieved that solely on the strength of his own character, like without people running negatives against him. And so I think we have a real path against a guy who's unpopular. He comes across as phony, right? Like he's a
Such
rich
an ass.
banker's kid who's really like trying to play the culture war warrior stuff. I mean, he wants to ban video games because he thinks you can't be a man if you play games. He's got a book coming out on manhood. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's like of all the people, the one who was skittering out the back of the Capitol is the one who's going to write the book on manhood,
Yeah,
right?
sure, bro. Okay.
It's all very weird. Again, he lost the corporate money after January 6th, and so he's had to transition into the culture sort of
Yeah,
currency, and
good
that's
luck
where
with
we're
that.
at.
Well, I do wish you the best of luck, and I hope that I see you in the halls of Congress as opposed to that dude. Because God, we would like less of them. As a brown man living in America, let me tell you, less Nazis is pro me. You know?
I tell you what, if I get into the Senate, which I'm planning on doing, we'll put this sheet that's behind me
Hell yeah,
up in
let's
my
go.
office walls, and you can come by and check it out in person.
Oh, dude, it would be my dream to play Magic in like the Capitol building. That would be amazing. Um, so yeah, let's pull it back a step to just Magic
Sure.
so that we can wrap it up and people can not feel that I'm just dragging the table down all day. Um, so do you still buy cards these days? Do you enjoy like the way this kind of Magic has been growing and like shifting to Commander and how much more casual it feels now?
So I love Commander, but I like to keep my Commander decks like kind of. Uh, I try to keep them pure, and when I say pure, I mean just with the 95 and before cards.
We
Just
call that
because.
pre DH now.
What's that?
We call that pre DH, as in like pre
Oh, I
EDH.
didn't know something existed.
Yeah, it's like basically anything before 2011, before Wizards started making cards, old
Oh,
school Commander.
for Commander. Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
so it's like now it's just old school Commander. We call it pre-EDH or just pre-DH. It's
Oh,
becoming
yeah,
very
right.
popular now.
Well, yeah. I mean, and actually, when I was stationed in DC, there was the shop here, the Dice City Games, the one that had the uncut sheet. They would have old school Commander games where you could only have they went a little past old school because that's 93, 94, right? They went up to 95 for the
Mm.
Commander, but it was pretty sweet. It was fun. But I like to keep it the same. So the new cards I just really get on Arena. Although I do every time a new Wanderlust comes out, I pick it out because, and I have it right here, but I think I have the greatest collection of Wanderlust cards in the entire world.
That is a
So
random.
I literally have, so these are the original like playtest cards
Whoa,
from
you have
back in the day.
playtest cards of Wanderlust?
Yeah, and so this is alpha, beta, and then actually the author or the artist Cornelius Broody, he's pretty cool. And so I eventually got every artist proof that he ever got, and so
Whoa.
here's a beta one, and he actually drew pictures on the back of
Yeah.
all of them. So
Holy
so
crap.
yeah, I've got every single one of them. But they just came out with that Magic 30, so I had to pick those up too.
To be fair, you might be the only person in the world who actually wants Wanderlust. So I think
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
be okay.
well, I already got them. It was actually fairly, I say fairly cheap. It was like $30 for for them. So.
Yeah, like, when you're talking about a set that also has, like, Lotus, Wanderlust is probably not gonna be the hardest card to get. Why Wanderlust, though? Like, that's a random ass enchantment to be in love with.
Well, I'll tell you. So let me pull one out here.
Like, I love the artwork for it. I thought it was always
That was
cool.
it. So here's the here. Not everybody's probably seen this. So here's the summer version, the summer magic
You
version, the
have a
19.
summer magic version of Wanderlust?
Oh, I got them all. Yeah, and
Oh my
so
god, I love you, man. What is this?
but it's just such a cool picture, right? And so when
Yeah,
I was a kid, when I was a kid, when we went on vacation, we either all occasionally my parents would pile us all into our old rusted out Ford conversion van and we go visit family in Florida. But usually we just went around to Missouri state parks and went hiking. So, it's a guy hiking, which I thought was cool, but also I wanted to see the world.
yeah,
I wanted to go see, Germany, which is what it looks like to me, and just other countries. That was another thing that joining the Marine Corps was pretty cool for.
yeah.
And so, just what the card does itself, a point of damage during the upkeep, doesn't really inspire me
Not
as
really
much.
matter.
But I thought Cornelius really did a great piece of art on it, and just the whole concept of Wanderlust in the card I thought was really compelling. So
That is fantastic. I love that.
yeah,
Like, I mean, there's so many cards that, like some of my favorite cards are basically cards that have also just like, I want to go there. I want to see that. I want to
Oh,
do this
yeah.
thing.
Well,
And
what's your favorite what are you talking? Give me an example.
well, like there's a card that came out in Magic Origins called like Guardian. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's like this little girl in Kaladesh, and
Mhm.
she's got this robot behind her who's like just obviously her servant who's carrying around. She's pinned a little flower to his chest because she's a little girl and it's her big helper. And it's
Oh,
this
that's fun.
beautiful looking kind of bazaar that they're in, and you see a whole mess of different races of people and stuff. You can tell that there's commerce going on here. You can tell that there's a whole world just being told in this card. And I'm like, wow, that feels like Persia in 19 in like
Oh, yeah, that's
1750 or something,
cool.
or like
That's fun.
Rashad and Port from Mercadian Masks, which is this beautiful just landscape
Oh,
of
yeah, I
just
know that one.
merchant
I
stuff.
thought that was a cool looking card.
Yeah, and I'm like,
That
damn,
card
I
was
want to
hot
like.
back in the day
Oh
too.
yeah, that card is busted, but like the artwork for that just is like it's so evocative, and it just makes you want to like. It's like, damn, I want to go there and do that. But I mean, my favorite art in all of Magic is Soul Ring. It's because it's just this burning ring of fire that's so powerful and
Yeah,
so cool,
yeah.
and like I don't know. I mean, I'm super jealous of that sheet behind you, man. But you know what though? Thank you so much for joining me today. I know that you've got a busy schedule and you've got a campaign and everything. And I wish you all the best of luck in trying to unseat this guy and
Thank you.
in, making a better place for your state and for mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone wants to find out more about it, lucaskunce.com. Just Kunce is my name.
The poster's right behind your head.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Well, there you go. Check it out. Or you can
Awesome.
follow us on Twitter at lucaskunzmo.
Cool. Yeah, man. I mean, I would love to play Magic with you someday. I think it would be super fun. If you ever get into office, let me know and I will come visit. It'll be sweet.
We'll do it. We will have a game in the Capitol
That would be amazing.
as part of the victory party.
Hell
It'll
yeah,
be
let's
good.
go. Um, anyways, my friends, as always, you can find me at Gear Up Where Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. on Tuesdays, or at YouTube on Tuesdays. Thank you to my editor, EK. And remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.